I grew up believing that life would gently unfold the way my school books promised, with dreams turning into plans and plans becoming reality. But I learned early that in many families, especially in mine, life does not always ask what you want before deciding your path. My name is Ariba, and I was raised in a small town where traditions were held tightly, sometimes more tightly than happiness itself. From childhood, I was taught to respect elders, to value family honor, and to believe that obedience was a form of love. I never questioned these lessons because they were wrapped in warmth, prayers, shared meals, and the comforting feeling of belonging. Yet, beneath that comfort, there were expectations quietly waiting for the right moment to step forward. I was a hardworking student, the kind who believed education could open doors even when walls seemed too high. My parents were proud of my results, and my teachers often said I had a bright future. I dreamed of becoming a teacher myself, someone who could guide children the way my mentors guided me. During those years, marriage felt like a distant idea, something that would happen naturally when the time was right. I imagined a partner who would understand my dreams, someone who would walk beside me rather than ahead of me. I did not know that while I was dreaming, decisions about my life were already being discussed in hushed voices behind closed doors. The day my mother told me I was to marry my cousin, my world seemed to pause. He was my uncle's son, Hamza, a quiet and serious man I had known all my life. He was never unkind, but we had never shared more than polite greetings and family conversations. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, listening to my mother explain that this decision was best for the family, that it would strengthen bonds and prevent disputes. She spoke gently, but her words felt heavy. I wanted to ask why my feelings were not part of this decision, but the question stayed trapped in my throat. In our culture, refusing such a proposal was seen as disrespectful, even selfish. I cried quietly that night, not because Hamza was a bad person, but because I felt invisible. I felt as though my dreams had been folded and placed on a shelf, to be remembered only as a childhood phase. When my father spoke to me the next day, his voice was calm but firm. He said life was not only about individual desires, that sacrifice was the foundation of strong families. He reminded me of everything my parents had done for me and asked me to trust their wisdom. I loved my parents deeply, and that love became the reason I agreed, even though my heart felt unsure. The engagement happened quickly, surrounded by relatives who smiled and congratulated us. Everyone seemed happy, and I tried my best to smile back. Hamza remained respectful and distant, as if he too was unsure how to behave in this new reality. We exchanged only a few words, mostly formal, but I noticed something in his eyes, a quiet acceptance mixed with hesitation. It made me wonder if he also felt trapped by circumstances, bound by expectations he did not choose. Marriage changed my life in ways I had not imagined. Moving into Hamza's home meant adjusting to new routines, new responsibilities, and new relationships. His mother was kind but traditional, and she expected me to fulfill my role without complaint. Hamza himself was reserved, speaking only when necessary. There was no romance, no shared laughter in the beginning, only politeness and distance. At times, the silence between us felt louder than any argument could have been. I struggled internally, trying to balance respect with my own emotions. I missed my parents, my books, and the freedom to dream without limits. Some nights, I would sit by the window, watching the moon and wondering if this was all life had planned for me. Yet, I reminded myself that patience was a form of strength, something my mother had always taught me. I decided that even if this marriage was not born from love, I would treat it with dignity. Slowly, small changes began to appear. Hamza noticed my effort, my willingness to care for the household and support his family. One evening, after a long day, he asked me about my studies. It was a simple question, but it opened a door. I told him about my dream of teaching, expecting him to dismiss it. Instead, he listened quietly and said he admired my determination. That moment, small as it was, felt like a breath of fresh air. Over time, our conversations became more frequent. We spoke about responsibilities, fears, and the pressure of expectations. Hamza confessed that he too had felt he had no choice in this marriage, that he had agreed out of respect for his parents. Hearing this did not erase my pain, but it softened it. We were not opponents in this situation. We were companions facing the same reality from different sides. Life tested us in unexpected ways. Financial difficulties arose when Hamza lost his job, and the weight of responsibility grew heavier. I offered to tutor children in the neighborhood to help support the household. Hamza was hesitant at first, worried about what others might say, but eventually he agreed. When he saw my dedication and the respect I earned, his pride turned into support. For the first time, I felt seen not just as a wife, but as a person with abilities and purpose. Through shared struggles, something gentle and sincere began to grow between us. It was not the dramatic love shown in stories, but a quiet partnership built on understanding and respect. We learned to rely on each other, to speak honestly, and to apologize when we were wrong. Love, I realized, does not always arrive with excitement. Sometimes it grows slowly, strengthened by patience and shared effort. Years passed, and life continued to challenge us, but we faced it together. I eventually completed my education and began teaching at a local school. Hamza found stable work again, and he supported my career with pride. We still carried the memory of how our marriage began, but it no longer defined us. Instead, it reminded us of how far we had come. One evening, as we sat together after a long day, Hamza thanked me for not giving up, for choosing kindness even when circumstances were unfair. I looked at him and realized that while the beginning of our story was shaped by others, the rest of it was written by us. We had turned obligation into commitment and uncertainty into trust. Looking back, I do not forget the pain of being forced into a decision I did not choose, but I also recognize the strength I found within myself. My story is not about accepting injustice blindly, but about finding dignity and meaning even in difficult situations. It is about understanding that while traditions can guide us, compassion and communication are what truly hold relationships together. The lesson my life taught me is simple yet powerful. Love cannot be forced, but respect, patience, and honesty can create a space where love may eventually grow. Every individual deserves to be heard, and every family must learn that true honor lies in the happiness and well-being of its members. My journey reminds us that even when life takes an unexpected turn, we still have the power to shape what comes next with courage, empathy, and hope.